All right, Earth scientists, let's take a look at making a histogram. So this is going to be kind of like a bar graph, but with a histogram, we use things called buckets in order to kind of group our data. All right. So for an example, we're going to use this over here. We've got some rainy days in April. Rained almost every day. Not really something that happens too often, but just for the sake of example, we're going to use this. Okay, so to set up our histogram, we are going to have a bar graph looking thing here, and then I'm going to put a 1 there, and then I'm going to put a 2 there, and a 3. Now, with these, zoom out a little bit, if you notice, I don't have any days that are like 1 inch of rainfall. So when we are thinking about our data here, we're actually going to be using, and this is I think this is the term that people use, is buckets. This is what I learned, and this is what I see online when I look at histograms and everything. So our buckets, the first bucket is going to be 0 to 0.99. Our second bucket will be 1 to 1.99, and then our third bucket will be 2 to 2.99, and so on. Okay, so this gives us a category. Now let's go ahead and use some highlighting magic. Let's say this is going to be my color for 0 to 0.99. Alright, let's go ahead and see which days fall into that bucket. Okay, April 11th has 0.5, so that's going to be in that bucket. Alright, 0 is in that bucket, 0.75, 0.5, and another 0.5. So, when I look at that bucket, how many days do I have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I've got 5 days. Let me scoot over here. Now we're looking at the second bucket. Let's go ahead and change our color here. 1 to 1.99. Okay, 1.5, 1.25, 1.25. Okay, so in that bucket I've got 3 days. Last but not least, let's go with this one. 2 to 2.99. We've got those two. And so now that we know how many days are in each bucket, we can go ahead and make our histogram. Okay, so I need to go up to 5, so let's go ahead and go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and it's a graph, so I need to label the axis, inches of rain, and then over here, I don't like that at all. There we go. Number of days. So it is like a bar graph because we are counting stuff up, but we're not making a separate bar for each one of our measurements. That would be too crazy. So we are doing our buckets, our categories. Now 0 to 0.99, you know, we have 1 there, so this bucket is like there, and then 1 to 1.99 is there, then 2 to 2.99 is in there. So let's go ahead and make our histogram. Alright, I think, oh boy, I think these are the last colors I use. So 5 days, go there, and I'll color that in. I think that's the same color, it looks like it. And then 3 days in our next bucket, and I think these are the last colors I use right there. Just color that in a little bit. And then 2 days for our last bucket here. Okay, and that's a histogram. So it shows me how many days was the rainfall in a certain category. Now, this is nice because, like I said, if we make a bar graph and let's say, okay, 0.5, well then there's 3 days for that. 1.5, there's 1 day. It's going to be a lot of bars on our graph, and it's going to be a little bit miserable, especially because when I did this rainfall, I made the numbers nice on purpose. Okay, because if you measure rainfall, I mean, you can 1.6 inches or something, you know, you can be very precise if you're going to be using some accurate data. So this is a histogram that tells me that, you know what, in April, yeah, most of the days were 0 to 0.99 inches, so less than 1 inch of rain, and then we had some days where we had a little more. Shows us the distribution. Now with our earthquake size, okay, so the magnitude, this is going to be like how far the block moved. Okay, so we'll go over that before the activity, but when we're looking at these, you can think of it as buckets, and since you're using centimeters, I would expect you to try and be as precise as possible. Instead of just saying, yep, that's about 2, yep, that's about 4. Well, you know, 1.5, you don't have to, you know, I think it's 1.9, and one person's arguing, I think it's 2, you know, just, you do have some markings in there, so try and use them as much as possible. But when we look at our graph here, we do have our buckets, so 0 to 1.99, 2 to 3.99, 4 to 5.99. Okay, so when you end up with some bars, you can draw them like this. Depending on what your data looks like. So when you draw your bar graph, you can use these numbers as kind of a guide where the bars should go, and then these down here are kind of your buckets. Okay, histograms, real quick. I'm not sure how much you've seen them before, but that's what we're going to use for this. Okay, let me know if you have questions on that.